Athari bhayat palayanam. You start running away from Kalayavana. Will anybody run away from an enemy? You are one who can face any number of enemies. But from one enemy, you decided to run. And after running away, you entered the cave and disappeared. Mujukunda was sleeping there. His sleep was disturbed. When he woke up, the enemy who had intruded completely got burnt into ashes. That was your method you adopted. Could you not have confronted him directly? You did not do it. So this is another contradiction. Swatman radehe pramadayutashrayah. You always say, I am sporting and I am delighting in my own self. Hyatma labdhyasmahe purnaha gehayor jyotirakriyaha. This is what Krishna says about himself. When he was conversing with Rukmini, he said that, why did you marry me? I am a person who is not interested in nastriyapatya artha kamukaha. I am not interested in women. I am not interested in children. I am not interested in wealth. I am a nishkinchana, and only the poor people like me. A well-born girl like you, why did you think of casting your lot with me? This is the way Krishna was speaking. Now, Swatman ratehe khidyati dhir vidamiha. At the same time, you are married to 16,008 women or girls. How can these contradictions be understood? So the more and more we think about you, my dear master, Swatman ratehe khidyati dhir vidamiha. The intelligence of even the most enlightened people, wise people, they get confused, perplexed. They enter into a state of consternation, thinking about you. This is a very beautiful description of Krishna's life. Karmanyanihasya bhavo abhavasyate durgashrayo athari bhayat palayanam kalatmano yat pramadayudashrayah swatman ratehe khidyati dhir vidamiha. So whenever we think of Krishna, don't suddenly come to conclusions. A great man will have something supra great in whatever he does, whatever he thinks, and in whatever he says. See, the conversation that we are discussing now, the dialogue between Uddhava and Krishna, when I am explaining it, how do you find it? We are going to discuss it only later. When we enter into the real dialogue, I don't know whether this ISS will continue till then, because to run this series unhinderedly, we require a lot of public participation. And the participation cannot come except from our own viewers. All of you will have to think seriously about Swamiji is giving a series of programs, telecast series is going on. It's very expensive. It's not enough if you view it. To enable ourselves as well as many others to view, we have to directly participate and take the financial burden. Unless you come to that conclusion and start supporting it and participating it directly, it cannot be done. Suppose I happen to continue, then you will find the dialogue between Krishna and Uddhava is going to be supremely profound and paramount. And you will find it is highly revealing. It reveals the depth of your own personality, the majesty of your mind, the magnificence of your intelligence, the splendor of the soul within your own body. All these will be revealed, and while revealing you will find Uddhava gets into a number of doubts. He feels that I am not able to understand this. Please explain it more. And Krishna goes on explaining. And you will find the real Hindu philosophy beautifully exposed in this conversation. We are discussing the preliminary portion of the whole Mukti Skandha. Where from did we leave the thread of Srimad Bhagavata? Tasyam vibhrajamanayam samruddhayam mahardhibihi vyachakshata avidruptakshaha krishnam adbhuta darshanam. Tasyam vibhrajamanayam samruddhayam mahardhibihi. Krishna was living in Dwaraka, which was a splendorous city. The whole city, standing in the midst of the huge sea, it appeared to be so exquisitely beautiful. It was equipped with all kinds of facilities. The facilities are so beautiful. I thought I would like to give you some description of the city. We have advanced quite a lot in our civilization. in our architectural thinking, layout, etc. But still have a glimpse of what Srimad Bhagavata says about the city of Dwaraka, which was erected unimaginable swiftness, fastness, etc. I mean inside the sea. Do we still have a city within the sea? I don't think we have reached that state. Tasyam vibhrajamanayam samardhayam mahardhibihi vyachakshata avidruptakshaha krishnam adbhuta darshanam. They went to the city of Dwaraka to see Krishna adbhuta darshanam. Wonderful, wonderful in every way, exquisitely so. Vyachakshata avidruptakshaha. Everyone who looked at Krishna never wanted to close his or her eyes. They wanted to go on looking at him, looking at him, looking at him, drink deep through the eyes the beauty, the excellence, the exquisiteness of that beautiful form. Now, tasyam vibhrajamanayam samardhayam mahardhibihi. It was full of all kinds of prosperity, affluence and abundance. What are they? I thought I would go back to the 10th skandha and give you some description of this Dwaraka. It is interesting to know. Drishyade yatra hitvashtam vijnanam shilpanaibunam yadhya chatvara vidhibihi yatha vastu vinirmidam. It was built by Vishwakarma. And Vishwakarma had displayed all the excellence of his knowledge so far as architectural perfection, architectural creation was concerned. Drishyade yatra hitvashtam vijnanam shilpanaibunam. So Dwaraka was an illustration of the majesty and magnificence of Vishwakarma's architectural knowledge, skill and layout. Rathya chatvara vidhibihi. There were different kinds of roads there. Chariot roads were there, royal highways were there, several crossroads were there, side streets were there, crossroads and side streets, on both sides of which were situated the citizenly residences. There also there was a lot of assortment and beauty. Suradramalato vichitropavanan Hemashringaihi divisprigbihi spadigattala gopuraihi. Suradramalato vichitropavanan Hemashringaihi divisprigbihi spadigattala gopuraihi. There were a number of groves, gardens full of trees, and assorted trees were there. Not one, but many of them. There were gardens with heavenly or celestial plants, creepers, small plants and big plants, full of leaves, full of flowers, full of some other designs, etc. They were surrounded by groves. There were gopuras, gatehouses, very huge, with sky-kissing roofs and domes. So much beautiful. They were all crowned with golden tops. Spadigattala, apartment on the roof of the upper story. They were all made up of crystals. Rajatara kutaihi, koshtaihi, hemakumbhair alangridaihi, ratnakudaihi, grihair, haimaihi, mahamarakatasthalaihi, Rajatara kutaih koshtaihi, hemakumbhair alangridaihi. These are all very clearly giving before us, showing before us how beautiful the palace was and what extent of prosperity it displayed. See, after all, the residence of any kingly person should not have anything like poverty or stinginess displayed anywhere. Everyone should be very beautiful. Even now in India you will find how much of money are people spending on a bathroom? A lot of money is being spent. Sometimes they make a swimming pool inside the flat itself. So there is a tendency in man to always display whatever he has hard earned in the form of wealth and luxury, etc. So here, not to speak of such a thing, when it comes to Krishna, how beautifully it was designed and made. There were silver and brass halls and storehouses. Storehouses made of silver and brass. They were decorated with golden pitchers. Houses crowned by jewels and golden handicrafts. There with flowers laid with emerald. Marataka is something very beautiful, very rare. It's a green stone. Now, a number of houses were in this manner. Vastoshpadinam jagrihaihi valabhibhischa nirmitam chadurvarnya janakirnam yadudeva grihollasad. Vastoshpadinam. There were a number of houses for Devas. Indra and the others, a number of houses were there. There is something called Chandrashala. What is the Chandrashala? A place where moonlight will be always available. It is lit by moon rays. And sloping roofs also were made beautifully. Vastoshpadinam cha grihaihi valabhibhihi cha nirmidam chadurvarnya janagirnam yadudeva grihollasad. It is not that Krishna alone lived there. All the different types of people were citizens of Dwaraka. Who were they? Brahmanas on the one hand, Kshatriyas on the other, Vaishyas and also Shudras. All of them were equally accommodated there. There was a lot of mutuality and collectivity in the whole city. Krishna did not differentiate anyone from another person. He always has said to Rukmini, Nishkinjana vayam noonam, Nishkinjana janapriyaha. I am actually a penniless man. And poor people, impoverished people, indigent people, they alone like me. Who will sing the name of God? Poor people. The rich people will feel shy about it. So there were residences for all the four Varnas. Palaces of the kings of the Yadu clan. When it came to Ugrasena, Vasudeva, etc., they were all given palaces. Imagine where stood this Dwaraka. It was a land consisting of about 30,000 square kilometers. 30,000 square kilometers. They were very well protected, boundaried by a tall wall throughout. A very huge wall. I think it comes to something like 690 kilometers in length you will find. So much was the length. It was very well protected. And this boundary wall was interspersed with scintillating pillars. And on the top of the pillars, every pillar was crowned with a golden dome and spire with crystals or jewels. Can you imagine? At least bring it to your imagination. You need not have poverty when you start thinking in this manner. Maybe physically you are surrounded by, intimidated by poverty. But when you read a book like this, the mind soars very high and it starts enjoying and exulting in all these descriptions. Everything was crowned with golden domes and spires with crystals or jewels. Cities, towns, villages, fields, hills, mountains, green vegetation, everything was there. The rule for any country is that 1/3 of the land should be absolutely green. Forests, plants, trees, herbs, creepers and the like. Like food for the body, we need oxygen for our lungs, for circulation in the body. Are we conscious of it? We have multi-storied buildings now. Suppose there is an area, 100 yards square. Normally one family will be there. Now we are stacking about 28, 30, 40 families. So horizontally there is no extension, vertically there is extension. In place of one family, if you stack 30 families, where from will you get oxygen? And in such multi-storied buildings nearby you will find it's all a concrete jungle. There is no tree at all. Can you live anywhere like that? The oxygen will have to come from a far off place. So make sure that wherever you live, you are surrounded by trees. So the thumb rule is that if there is a country of 12,000 kilometers square, then at least 4,000 kilometers square should be filled with vegetation. This is an important point. But I think in India we are flouting the law. There are very few states where such a greenery is available for people to live in a healthy manner. We need oxygen, mind you. That is why our Shastras say to plant a tree and to look after it. It is just like Dasha Putra Samo Vrikshaha. It is just like looking after 10 children. Inside that boundary wall, there was something like an outermost ring road. This ring road was not suddenly there. There was an interleaving space which was filled with greenery. Altogether it extended up to 691 kilometers. You know, the greenery between the boundary wall and the outer ring road, when you start looking at it, you will find the boundary wall is of a lesser height. So beautifully the greenery had grown. Full of creepers, plants, flowers, shrubs and bushes. Everything was a feast to the eyes. From the ring road, all around diametrical streets were there. And these diametrical streets were intercepted by inner ring roads at different radii. Whenever the diametrical roads were intercepted by inner ring roads, there were crossroads there. So that crossing, it was always protected. Protected by what? Squares, rectangular, oval, semicircular, pentagonal, hexagonal, heptagonal, octagonal, nonagonal islands in sufficient number were specially made in order to facilitate the intersectional traffic. There was nothing like a direct crossing. Everything came and went around and then took their respective routes. Crossroads were very well arranged to host residences on both the sides. The roads also had different dimensions and different usage purposes. Chariot roads were there. Royal highways were there. Elephant thoroughfares were there. And then citizenly roads also. You know, whenever you make a road, adjacent to that, there will be land. So it is not that the road is a little high and the land is a little less. Everything was leveled out beautifully. The land abutting the roads was leveled up, facilitating vehicular and pedestrian traffic. It was so beautifully done. A variety of gardens with a wide assortment of flowers and groves were visible anywhere and everywhere you enter Dwaraka. Parks were there, mounds, lakes, rivers, tanks, everything beautifully kept and inhabited by the respective creatures and beings. So you will find water birds, water animals, water creepers, water plants, everything was there. Just like earth offers a beautiful ground for earth creatures to live, water also is an atmosphere. If you go into the sea, I am told, very beautiful tall trees are there. The trunks may not be very big. They come from the bottom and come almost to the surface of the sea. So the water also is a beautiful atmosphere. There were jogging tracks, walking tracks also, laid with emerald chips and powder, marataka, beautifully leveled, rolled up. They were very beautifully pressed and roller treatment given. Palaces of Ugrasena, Vasudeva, Krishna, Balarama, etc. were specially positioned and it was very easily visible from all directions. Brahmana residences were adjacent to them. Then you will find Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras all lived alike without any exception. There was a lot of intermixing, social intercourse between all the different communities. Everybody was exposed to the others. So you will find, even today in India, wherever you go, we have our legend, our legacy, our culture sufficiently known, even to the lowest level of the society. Unless there was an intermixing between the different communities and different social groups, how is it that the culture permeated to such an extent? Ramayana is spoken to, referred to, and also enacted by practically all communities in our country. How is it that this permeation was possible? So don't think that we were observing untouchability and keeping people away from each other. It is not so. This untouchability was a bane that crept into our society somewhere in the middle, perhaps during the period of some anarchy or so. Otherwise, untouchability is not in our trait at all. All people have the same type of bodies. We know very clearly that one man's blood can be injected to, can be transfused to another man of the same group. So our body remains the same, mind has the same emotions, intelligence has the same rationality, and ego is alike. So where is the difference? And looking at what do you say X is untouchable and another is touchable? These are all absolutely erroneous notions. In any society you will find evil will creep in. Not only in Indian society, every society you will find. We know of the apartheid. Only a few years back it disappeared in the West. Unless you are very guarded, all this evil will creep in and will eat up the society like parasite does a tree. So we have to be very careful. Children's playground, elders' sports ground, all had their respective place in Dwaraka. There were Devagrihas, houses for gods and goddesses, temples. They were built with Vastu insight and excellence. What is that Vastu? The indigenous architectural science and art. So everything was gone into in detail. Where is the wind coming from? What is the seasonal wind like, seasonal rain like? The house should face in which direction? How to reduce the direct sun while living in a residence? All these things were very, very well considered. What more? Sudharma parijatam cha mahendraha prahinodharehe yatra javasthido martyo martya dharmairna yujyade Sudharma parijatam cha mahendraha prahinodharehe. There are a number of flower trees. Of all of them, amongst all of them, Parijata is considered to be the best. If I understand rightly about Parijata, I used to collect Parijata flowers for worship when I was a young boy. You know, this Parijata flower will flower in the early hours of the night. And within a matter of 1 hour or 2 hours, they will fall also. Next morning when we go, we have to collect the flowers from the ground. They will all fall. Such a beautiful smell. Very soft and tender. Even as you remove it from there or collect it from the ground, you will find the petals are falling. Such beautiful Parijata. It is something very good. Then Sudharma. Sudharmam Parijatam cha Mahendraha Prahinodharehe. Indra sent Parijata and he also made that Sudharma. What is called Sudharma? This is the palace, the assembly hall of Dwaraka. What is its distinction? Those people who sat in Sudharma and went on discussing the state's affairs. Any kind of a king's palace must have an assembly hall. And the entire affairs of the state, particularly the important ones, will have to be discussed. It's almost like our parliament and assemblies in the country. But this Sudharma was such that those people who sat there and started discussing whatever they discussed, they never had hunger or thirst. They did not even want a glass of water to drink. So they were completely looked after. Can you imagine a facility like this? This is what Srimad Bhagavata says. I wish we had so many Sudharmas in our own country now. No need to serve tea or snacks in between as we do now. Sometimes when I go for talks, during the talks we make, they will start distributing tea. Sometimes I had to ask them, don't do it now. We are discussing something. I am talking and the others are hearing. While somebody is talking, we must faithfully hear. Any talk is to a set of people. And the people have to hear. Then only they will understand. And they will have to form their own ideas. If a discussion is available after a lecture, they should discuss the subject. We are discussing something very important about the country, about the world, about the nation. During that discussion, you still go on sipping tea. What is this? So it has to be stopped. There must be a specific hour for relaxation, for refreshment. That should be used. It cannot be inside the assembly house. It has to be away from. So many times I had to say, stop, don't distribute anything now. Actually, this kind of an eating while listening is a disgraceful habit. It's a disturbance to the whole assembly and the proceedings. Let us understand it very well. See, our ancient wisdom, how much importance they give to public meetings and public discussions. Are we so faithful in our discussions? During the discussions, what is all going on in our parliament? Pushing, pulling, taking the chairs, throwing them. What is all this? A discussion is a discussion. It is between the mouth and the ear. There should be no employment of hands at all or feet. You should sit wherever you are, listen to what others say, let the words sink into your mind, sink into your brain, and bring forth your responses, emotional as well as rational. And then we will discuss it, pool our resources, inner resources, and arrive at the right judgment. This is what is called a peaceful and a faithful deliberation. There cannot be any physical demonstration at all. It is all between the mouth and the ear. You can also see the person speaking, the type of face he has with your eyes. So compare the present scenes in the parliament and what happened in Sudharma earlier. Our members of the parliament claim that this is the highest forum for making law and discussing the affairs, the plights and fates of the country. And in the highest forum, see, it's a demeaning misbehavior.